we will talk about all the things who happened on Hive blockchain lately, and I guess you all have a few things to say, to discuss, to talk about the latest stuff which take place. I only have a rough list of functions starting from marketing about latest pressing matters on Hive, including payment integration, API. I don't know where to start. Who want to start? Let's say other word, ladies first.
Oh, come on. Well, I mean, we've got a lot going on, and I think probably, for those of you who haven't been familiar with me, my name's Krim. Um, so it's been a weird year for me, certainly, because I've changed a lot of my focus from core code and kind of working with the core group to showing off what they're doing. And that's been a very interesting transition for me because, in some ways, I'm much more connected to what's happening in our ecosystem. And in some ways, I'm a little disconnected. But it's been really interesting getting out, and I'll be talking about this tomorrow a little bit, and seeing some of the changes in people's sort of attitudes towards blockchain in general and towards what Hive can do. And so in terms of kind of setting us up to talk about what's going on, some of the biggest changes are people care a lot less about just magic free money anymore. And that's fantastic for Hive because obviously that's always been a struggle for us is it's one of the things we do best. But it's also it's not the best way to onboard people. And I'm gonna warn you guys, this hat is gonna sail away. So one of you guys is gonna get bopped. This was a poor choice, but it's that or I catch on fire. So we're gonna make it work. So yeah, I think it would be really nice to kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been doing as a group, and especially block trades. Everybody here is working on things for this, but tech that starts on Hive that can bring outside blockchains, Web2 platforms, integration to our tech stack, really easy ways of integrating stuff that Hive does really, really well that other blockchains don't have an option for. And, starting with half and working out from there, it's quite interesting to see how many opportunities we have to kind of target these outside groups because they're trying to build solutions that we have had either already working or in progress for years now.
And who else could better answer some more stuff as block trades?
I guess so. As Grim mentioned, we've spent a lot of time for the past, I would say, years now, working on trying to democratize the development process for Hive. The core code for Hive is C++, and there's not as many programmers that are comfortable to work in that area, and the code's pretty complex. So what we've really been focused on is getting the interesting data out of the core code into what we call HAF, which is Hive Application Framework. And it's essentially a SQL database that people can interact with. People can write software in that environment and basically be interacting with the blockchain without having to know how to program in C++, for instance. And SQL's, for people who don't know, which is probably a lot of the audience, is essentially just a very standard database language, and you can write code in many different languages to talk to those databases to write your applications. And it's not like this is something new. I mean, people do this all the time. They take data from a blockchain and put it into a SQL database. But one of the problems a lot of times the way they do it is blockchains have this interesting thing, which is data that's supposedly happened. The data in the blockchain can be reverted, something called a fork. And this is a problem that programmers often, when they're writing applications for blockchains, don't necessarily take into account properly, which means that their application may do something based on some blocks that get generated, and then those blocks go away, and their software doesn't account for the fact that those blocks are gone, and that's a problem, especially depending on what your application does. So we really want to.
All right, it's just HiveFest for a bit, okay? We're just gonna let it be.
I think it leave the V down.
Yeah, we're gonna leave
the
it.
base. So, anyways, one of the driving forces behind HAF is this idea that it can tell your application when blocks that you processed are no longer there, and it can even automatically make your application adjust for that fact without you having to write software to take advantage of it. So that's really the gist of what HAF is for. and it's sort of a building block to build other things on top of. We're interested in working on basically a smart contract platform based on top of that. But I don't want to put down the guys' work these guys are doing. I think that's fantastic. One of the big ideas behind our process of having second layer smart contracts is that we can have many competing and not even competing, even complementary platforms that can process transactions. It's like Hive is like a base layer, and it has a really nice, tight governance model, very, very solid software. And then you can build all these different things on top of it that you could try your own ideas out for how you want things to work. And it's just a base layer that makes sure that it says this is the order in which things happen. And that's actually one of the biggest things that blockchains are for, is just ensuring that everybody agrees that things happen in a certain order. It sounds very simple, but that's one of the big promises of blockchain, really. So I guess that's what we've been working on. Pass it on.
Yeah, well, just going a little bit off of what you're saying. Yeah, so Half's great, and in fact, the VSC Block Explorer already uses Half as its main kind of parsing engine.
Oh, that's
and yeah, and VSC proper will probably go that route where it's like built on top of Half as its parsing layer, just to reduce the amount of data that has to be synced up from the lower level. But I do have a question on the actual contracts itself.
Sure.
As far as I'm aware, that's second layer, right? Like that's not like I've wrote some Half code that now can change the entire state of
That's
Hive.
correct. It's
Yeah,
strictly
so it's
second
strictly
layer.
second layer, just based off of Hive.
My idea is really to avoid having second layer. I mean, smart contract stuff on the first layer. Now, not saying someone can't do it, but
Yeah.
But custodying methods, I think, would be the way. Like some of the things you guys are talking
Yeah,
about.
like multi-sig or something
Exactly,
like that.
exactly.
And I mean, the route forward to really solving multi-sigs, because they do have risk, is like native layer 1 custody layers that allow you
Sure,
to own funds and do things on the chain from another layer, and whether that's maybe smart contracts or something else like
No,
that.
I think that's a perfectly
specifically
reasonable way to do it.
dedicated
Yeah.
for that use case.
Basically,
Yeah.
I just don't want the fundamental protocols to be. But as long as you're working within, escrow layer is not a big deal. Right?
Yeah,
That's,
yeah. Well, some kind of layer on top of that to handle those more advanced things.
Yeah. I think that's perfectly reasonable addition to the first layer.
That's great.
What was the question again? I'm teasing.
Sorry
by the
for
way.
that. Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll need the help.
Get in there. You're doing
What-
stuff too.
What was the question?
Okay, let me drive this to another question, otherwise we get stuck here. Payment integrations is something I have on my secret list. What does it mean for Hive?
Is anybody going to tackle it? Yeah, man, here.
Well, payment integrations, as we've been planning HiveFest and getting people to download the app and seeing the process involved, they love how instant it is. They can see their name, they can see that they get it. The fact that it's crypto, that's where the awareness needs to raise. So in places, like Cuba, Venezuela, where they're much more crypto privy and they understand that, yes, this stuff has value and they understand the security measures, I think it's very imperative to create circular economies. Crypto, Lord Butterfly had a good saying, I'm going to butcher it. Hive is the promise of what crypto is supposed to fulfill, which is, banking the unbanked. And if your transfer costs $1 and you're only trying to transfer $1, defeats the purpose. So Hive here clearly is head and shoulders above everyone else. If you look at HBD, it's basically mirror world. We can adapt that to what we deem as a community the most stable asset in the world. Right now, that's the US dollar. So people who can't get dollars, they can't get stable currencies, they can now blog, earn, be able to turn that into HBD, buy goods and services with it. The merchants get it. They say, this is easy. Why would I cash out? Then you start to see these circular economies. So that's what I'm really interested in. It starts as, hey, I can buy some cool things with my crypto, to, wow, we create circular economies where they didn't have infrastructure for banks. They didn't have access to this type of technology before. And a lot of it's overly centralized. They can cut your services off. They don't have to worry about that with HBD. So I see payment integrations like Keychain, V for V. I always looked at Bitcoin as sort of our fiat, right? We're not on any of the big fiat exchanges, but we can always go and convert to Lightning, and Lightning, you can get your favorite fiat. And I think that's a pivotal bridge to start to create this outside of the grid system where you're not reliant on centralized forces. You at least have an alternative.
Yeah, and I'm super excited for more decentralized technologies that would make it automated. So now I can integrate with some kind of system where I can just go from Hive right to Bitcoin or some other place like Litecoin, and then trade that out to fiat with whatever Web2 already existing bridges there are, fiat on ramps, fiat on off ramps. So making that automated and decentralized, and then just plug and play, hook up to your app. I want to accept some crypto payments, and then I can send that wherever I want after the fact to cash out.
More questions, more news with regard fiat. What's on your side?
As far as payment goes, I don't like to touch fiat. I think it's a little legally dangerous. So, in general, I would like to support companies that are more established to take, say like 3Speak could charge a subscription fee that would enable people to utilize their infrastructure, better infrastructure, or upload longer videos or 4K videos or something like that. And that gives them a way to pay for their infrastructure and lower their costs that would be associated with taking money out of the Hive ecosystem. So it's still a net boon and a way to get capital into the system without actually touching the capital ourselves.
Interesting point. I have another topic which is a bit new to me, that we have it, or when we have it, off-chain accounts was on that list. Could someone give us a little bit more light into that corner?
Like, are you asking how it works, or just
Yeah,
what it means?
if this is already available, what we can do. I saw it in combination with the multi-sig wallets you offered.
Yeah, so at the moment, what we've been testing with the testnet is just you have a smart contract, you take some off-chain transactions that are created by a DID, which can be either just a raw public key or something that's attached directly to Ethereum, and then interact with that smart contract. So whether that's doing transfers or registering domain names or something else that you've programmed. And then the next kind of phase is actually building that into more of the multi-sig, where the multi-sig actually acts as an agent of the off-chain account. So that they can actually interact with Hive through that layer.
Clear enough.
Nope.
Well, it's one of those things where, you know, we've got these pieces that are pulling the tech in, but Arkanj and I were talking about this on the live stream. Automagic is what we need now, right? Simplicity and a reduction of difficulty. And so a lot of people understand, like, okay, I know how to make an OAuth account, you know, using a Facebook or whatever, right? Like, people are very familiar with Web2 methods of this, and we've certainly got people who could bring those sort of off-chain identities that they've built and use that to onboard. So we've got a couple groups that are doing it, and so obviously Vaultec and the ceramic accounts and light accounts and everything that they're pursuing is one. Leo Finance is doing it as well. And so it's not necessarily that everything is off-chain, but certainly that there are portions of data that don't need to be put on-chain, but we can draw from Web2 and kind of get people in easily. And that just kind of comes back to the idea of not everybody's ready to just hop right in and start powering through posting on the chain, and that's okay. And that's been a struggle for us. That's a paradigm shift, because we're like, how easy is it to blog? Just post something. And then we realized, yeah, I haven't posted a personal post since 2019. So who am I to say that to somebody, right? Is just understanding that people are going to fall into this space and into our products in different ways. And so just giving them a sort of like toe in opportunity to easily make an account without actually all of the sort of heavy ideology that comes with it is going to be critical to the next part of our growth, for sure.
Vincent.
I will add on what you say. What we need, and I will jump to what Matt said, Sarker said in his introduction speech. We need businesses, like in Sucre, where people use Hive, they pay, and that's it. They don't know anything about the blockchain. That's what we got with Splinterlands. People play, they don't know they use Hive. So we have a lot of very good technical tools now. That's nice, but we now need to go to business and to build things on top of Hive whatever technology we use and then go to the masses through that channel, like payments, like you said, easy payments and so on.
Yeah, what people do in Cuba
Yeah.
to have the value still in a chain. It's moving from one to another without having a bank in the middle who eats our commissions and so on.
Yeah, and it should be easy to use, easy to do for the layman.
Like going off of that point, there's already a lot of systems right now, like Magic Link and Taurus, that allow you to onboard onto Ethereum and other platforms like that. So building and integrating those tools into Hive would really make actual onboarding a lot faster. And right now with 3Speak, we're already working on integration with Magic Link, so you can go sign in with like Discord, Google, Facebook, and all of the other options that are just natively supported by that provider, which then we would hook it up to like an off-chain account or proxy or something else to actually do the posting.
That made it way more clear. Thanks.
Well, I wasn't sure what you're asking at first, but
Are there any questions to the podium out of the audience? Yes. We need to get you a microphone.
I really like what you guys are talking about in terms of integrating Hive into businesses, and I was wondering what Hive can offer a business structure in terms of voting and in terms of can I use Hive to take my whole company and all the people in my company and have them make decisions in that company, and how could we integrate that into Hive?
Good question.
So that's an interesting sort of like a governance model amongst the business. I've heard of businesses wanting to have front ends where only their workers or their customers can post to it. And then if you think of it, maybe they can earn points. Those points could be powered up and they can upvote, and then they influence the trending. So maybe they say this business sucks. They don't want that on their trending, but they don't have any control over it because it's the community. So they have to really tote the line and provide good services. As far as earning stake, you'd have to find a way to divvy it up, way to earn. Maybe you add incentives where people get a set amount of points based on what their rank is or what their position is, and then they can earn points and earn more governance rights in the future as businesses become more autonomous and more worldwide, where anyone can get involved. But I think that or businesses always want to reach their community, and they want to be intimate, and they want to know what they want. The community wants to feel heard. So I think these dedicated front ends where, you think of a coupon, well, instead of that, maybe if you have X amount of points, you automatically get the coupon, and you get recognized as being a good customer. And all these things can happen on the front end. And that's where I think Hive has really made a tokenized social status in a way where you can earn social rep and actually have value from that because people can see what you've done. So I think mixing that with businesses is really magical, and I think the first business to really touch that is going to have a really good experience.
Yeah. So this is one aspect of it for sure, is you have a social platform where you breed brand ambassadors essentially, and that's your employees can be part of that. But kind of to speak to your question, one of the things that has been happening as I get out and I move more in spaces where there are other blockchains. So there are, let's say competitors who are trying to tackle things from a purely financial standpoint, which is what a lot of blockchain is designed for. Let's be realistic, right? Most blockchains try to tackle financial problems, financial solutions. Hive is poised to solve a lot of other things, and the way that we talk about it is really important. And so for businesses, I mean, essentially, if you think about Hive as a vehicle for sharing immutable text, or even just pulling known entities and their actions, it would be very interesting and very easy to do something like, okay, anybody that works at your particular company at any given time, your company account broadcasts a JSON with a little bit of information about them or whatever. And that's now available in the blockchain. Anybody can pull it, but you can also pull it. So if they want to vote on, decentralized polling has been released a couple times, but the Peak Open project has just put it out there. You can run a poll, you know who your employees are, you can pull all that off the blockchain, nice, easy, fast, put together a half table, do it from HiveSQL. You have a lot of options, and all of this stuff is held. People can double check it. Your employees know you're not rigging a vote. There's a lot of ways that you can use data in and out of Hive very differently than we think about it now. And so this is kind of the next phase for me, certainly, is helping sort of businesses, blockchains, everybody out there. What other than just sort of the social side of it, what else can you do with this tech stack? Because it turns out, holy crap, there's a lot. So, from your question and the standpoint, there's the rewarding answer, which, Dan nailed. Then there's the flip side, which is, knowing that you can store almost any information in Hive's blockchain, and knowing that you can work with a recognized identity and connections between those identities, including votes or just text strings, you've got so much information that you can manipulate and pull and use. So it's very much like having a specialized database, except you don't have to build that infrastructure just for your company. You can have it be open and provably fair to any degree that you want. And anyone can do that. And so any business could just jump on that and start, building from that standpoint, for sure, with no fees and not having to pay gas fees to do something like a business vote.
And I think this is where like a VSC or Honeycomb or Half would come in, and any of this business logic that you have come up with or anybody else can come up, you can probably share it. It's all open source. So just start your community and make it whatever you need it to be.
More questions from the audience?
The moderator not prepare enough questions?
I have an audience who is probably like to ask you everything they ever wanted to know about Hive. So I have some more topics here on my list. Server-side console-based proof of access storage. Who?
Hello?
Oh.
Hi.
Oh, there's one question.
Yeah, so I have a question. Is there a way to speed up the relationship between HBD and Hive? I see that the exchange, the Hive Dex, is still like in beta. It's been in beta for a while. And right now it's also very obscure. Like most people don't know about the exchange. They will have to wait 3 days for them switch from their HBD to Hive. And Hive is really, it's available on Binance, it's available on many exchanges, and HBD is not. So it's a kind of like a throughput to have to jump from HBD to Hive and then wait 3 days and then go to Binance. And I think it's just a marketing issue. It's not really that the tech is not there or the tools are not there. It's just that people don't know because it's not available in their wallet or whatever.
Yeah, so there's a couple parts of this, and I was going to give it to block trades at first because half of the question is conversion, which is the 3.5 day aspect. What I can talk to is the exchange process. So I do a lot, if not most, of the exchange outreach for us. Let me tell you, that is difficult. Imagine going to some of the biggest centralized financial entities in the world and saying, "Hi, I don't have a first name, I don't have a last name, I don't have a company, we don't have an address, we don't have a credit card, we don't have anybody that's ever audited our blockchain. Do you want to list us?" And they go, "Get wrecked." So it's a long process to kind of negotiate these listings. The other flip side is too, the standard practice right now for centralized exchanges to get listed, oh, amazing, thank you, sir, is pay me, because centralized exchanges are not doing as well as you think they are. I hate to tell you. So the reality is their business model isn't always trading fees, even though it should be. Their business model is to find new projects that are funded by stupid money and to extract that stupid money from a new project before it dies. And that's a really, really unhealthy business model. And it means for us to get HBD listed and, to do that convincing, the fastest route that is not always even still open to us is to pay them something ridiculous like 2-3 Bitcoin at a time. That's not really super viable for us in most cases, but it also is problematic in that we are seeing more and more regulation. So it's not us. We're free. We have HBD. It works. It's convertible. Exchanges, when I go and work with them, I'm under NDA, I'm fully doxxed, we need legal documentation, and then we hit the wall of who owns Hive? Who programs Hive? Who owns the code base? Okay, cool. Give me a docs team of everyone who's ever worked on the code. So when you get these projects that, come out and they spend the money, they spend 2-3 Bitcoins to get listed, they put up 2 or 3 sacrificial lambs who go to court the second the rug pull happens. That's how these centralized exchanges absolve themselves of problems. That does pose a problem for us as a blockchain that is actually truly decentralized, isn't owned by anyone. It does make it tricky. So to avoid kind of taking up the entire talk on this, we do have some attempts to kind of get HBD listed more places, but you do have options as well. And I hope personally that between swaps, on-chain dexes, and cross-chain dexes, we're going to see options versus centralized exchanges. Because let's be very realistic, the countries that are already blocked from these big exchanges like Binance, they're probably not coming back, and more countries will drop. And so the reliance on centralized exchanges is it's pretty problematic. So the idea of getting in and out of HBD, you have the conversion, which is the 3 days, but you also have internal marketplaces. You can trade instantly. There are a lot of people who don't want to wait that 3 days. So the point that you're making of waiting is really important, and part of that is we don't have enough people talking about our on-chain internal marketplaces. And we're just now kind of getting more ways of accessing them. We've got more people who are creating front ends for them. And part of that is really actually driving, our own people to provide liquidity. There's not a lot of HBD on the market. It turns out everybody really likes it and wants to hold on to it. So, from a conversion standpoint, I don't know if one of you guys wants to jump in who's working on core code, but...
It's what you said. I think I feel like almost you've missed, there's a currency exchange you can trade right now. And it was the intended mechanism at the very beginning for how to go from HBD to Hive or vice versa. It's just the on-chain exchange. The 3.5 day conversion is really, it's not meant for trading your HBD into Hive. That's not really its main purpose. It's a mechanism to sort of allow to maintain the pegs, the pegging price of HBD. So if somebody sees the peg goes really out of balance, they can quickly just exchange to Hive worth the same value, and they don't have to wait for people to buy it from them. So it's an enforcement mechanism that allows the pegging price of HBD to maintained. It's really not meant for average people who want to take their HBD and make Hive. That's why it's 3.5 days. It's an inconvenience that should drive you instead to trade at the market with other people, and you could trade in 3 seconds. So that's really the reason why there's that kind of difference. There's some other reasons for that delay and to prevent market manipulation and things like that as well. But the driving idea is you don't do the 3.5 day unless you're trading a lot. If you want to make a really large transformation of HBD to Hive or vice versa, then you might use that mechanism. But for smaller amounts that people would normally be doing, the exchange is the way to go. And there's like Krim mentions, there's multiple interfaces to that exchange at this point. I think so. It shouldn't be too hard to find one you can use.
A good big brain collective here question would be, okay, so we know that we've got our great interest, and that's really incentivized people to hold HBD, which is part of the reason there isn't a lot of native liquidity. People aren't always making trades. How do we get people using it? How do we get more people who want to trade back and forth between HBD and Hive using our internal marketplaces?
Well, once we start getting more liquidity and people start understanding the internal market more, what I would like to see is, because you have bulls and bears and you have people who like to speculate like myself, and instead of going to Binance and trading for some centralized stablecoin, you can trade back and forth into HBD, creating a circular positive loop for Hive. Because you're never cashing out, you're just going from risk on to risk off, but you're still in the same ecosystem. So instead of giving all those trading fees and giving all of that energy and liquidity to centralized forces that we are opposed to and can cut your account off and not helping us one bit, it's just a temporary Band-Aid. We can create our own environment and our own destiny by encouraging people to go risk off, just meaning I don't want a volatile asset. I'll go to HBD and I might stake it and earn in between swing trades or whatnot. So I think that's critical.
I guess the only other thing that occurs to me from, just the question itself is maybe we need to make it more obvious in the interface. So, I mean, and I say the interface, but we're talking a bunch of interfaces, right? Yeah. Maybe we just have something that when you click on your HBD, it just your amount, it pops up and says, would you like to convert this to Hive?
I mean, so I think there is an aspect to it where it is a marketing aspect. I mean, Madiari has a great marketplace view. Peakd has one with hivehub.dev. They've got a great market there. Like, we used to sort of be constrained to the internal market on hive.blog. Now you've got a lot more sort of rich, in-depth options that you can do with it. I think there's probably some work to be done even internally where we can get people kind of using these versus the thought of I must go to the only centralized exchange listing, which is I think Bittrex, which is, that's I wouldn't do it. To be quite honest, I wouldn't take my HBD out there. It's how do we get more people kind of moving back and forth, because we're in this magical place now where everybody that gets HBD covets it and either wants to use it to buy game assets or wants to stake it and hold on to it for interest. So I mean, there is certainly an aspect of, hey, there's not as much on the market when I need it and want it. And vice versa.
In fairness, though, he was asking to convert from HP to Hive, so
well, those are the options.
He's going
so
the other
you
direction.
gotta go whichever way you gotta go. I think we could probably get people more excited about it.
Could I ask a quick question?
No.
Okay. I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah, I know.
Just being polite.
Do it, please.
Quick question. On the flip side of that, going from Hive into HBD, of course, we've got the 3.5 day conversion, but is there some opportunity here for hedge funds to get incredible liquidity in a stablecoin if they're going through Hive into HBD and doing a buying program over, say, 100 days, where the 3.5 day time window doesn't really make much of a difference, as opposed to us normal people who might do one trade and not want to use the 3.5 day window. A hedge fund might think, well, if we're doing a buying program over 100 days, going straight from Hive into HBD, it's a large liquidity pool. It kind of makes HBD an incredibly liquid token right now, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think that's completely true. If you want to do large transactions without, changing the slippage as much, that's one of the things about the conversions. You just get the price at the time. So when you don't have to worry about someone saying, oh, this guy's trying to buy it, and we'll drive up the price.
It's incredibly elastic. People say we need more HBD. There's a theoretically infinite HBD. Is more people need it, the market cap of Hive raises, which means more HBD can be there. So it's just a tool that a hedge fund can use and find incredibly useful.
Ryan?
On this subject, that's one of the things that I saw Lightning as a sort of a easy non-KYC on and off ramp, and it largely is. And I charge a very small fee. I charge a fee more as a token to stop abuse rather than because I have to. It's small volumes at the moment. I mean, certainly with more DHF funding, I could just do away with the fee, but I don't want it ever to be totally frictionless and free. But certainly for Binance has put in now a 2 million sat, which is $500 or so, limit on in and out with Lightning. But there are in many jurisdictions now ways to move. I'm talking about the $100, $200 type transfers, and those can be done efficiently with Lightning. And then my system is very efficient at getting Lightning in and out of Hive. So for the smaller amount, this isn't for the traders, this isn't for the $10,000, $20,000 type things, but for buying things and doing real stuff. That's where I built V4V app, and I hope it fills a niche. And especially once we get wrapped Bitcoin natively on on Hive, then there'll be this option where people won't have to, if they want to stay in Sats and they like to denominate in Sats, they can do that, or they can go into HBD and backwards and forwards. So, that's where that's the lower level of that I'm trying to fill.
What was the question?
It wasn't really a question. I'm just promoting myself. I mean, come on.
Okay, another topic I got, if you're talking about HPD, to my ears more and more is which APR do we like to hold? So it's a long discussion. There are different opinions. I know. Is there something we should talk about here?
Well, I think right now what we have is very primitive. I think there's consensus that 20%, 10%, or whatnot for 3.5 days is just kind of silly. We've had talks amongst the community about creating something called Hive bonds, where you can lock the HBD up for a year and you get a higher, more realistic interest rate. So I think the debate over the 3.5-day window is kind of useless and a waste of energy. The debate should be, what should the APR be on a year? How long should we have the windows? That's what we should be looking at.
Yeah, because many people see this 20% APR as a good investment, because if you look around, there are not many investment with that APR. So is this a magnet to drive people to Hive?
It has to at least be as high as the inflation is, and inflation is like 3 to 10% right now. So I think that's going to be the low.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's in between. It's a good magnet because, as you say, 20% is big number, but we didn't promote it outside of Hive. If we wanted it to be a magnet, we should have made promotion towards a platform or towards a user. And on the other side, when you say to people, hey, if you buy HBD and you stake them, you can get 20%, they say, it's not possible. So it's really hard to sell, but we didn't really make the effort to promote this APR outside of Hive and to see if it works or not.
Okay.
Right.
More questions from the audience? Yes. Please state your name first. It makes it a little bit more easy.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Rice, and my question is, how many people here have considered integrating dynamic staking into Hive, where instead of having a fixed time where you stake, let's say I think it's 13 weeks, and the savings also has a fixed time, what about allowing people to choose how long they stake, and also altering the reward system based on the longer you stake, the longer or the more rewards you get in terms of interest? And I have serious interest in that because of the security aspect, where I would personally be interested in staking longer than 13 weeks to make my funds more secure.
I think that's interesting. You have to. So there's two things to look at here. One of the reasons for a long lockup is the security, but it's also security versus an exchange attack. It deters exchanges from using user funds against them. We see most blockchains that don't have any staking time. Their biggest validators are Coinbase. Their biggest validators are centralized exchanges like Binance, whom we know we can't trust. So it's about deterring that sort of attack where people are going to use funds against the wishes of the users, but also making it to where it's more feasible, right? People are it's a lot to ask somebody straight up to go lock up for 3 months. So there's a fine line there. I'm not going to pretend to know the exact answer. Dynamic staking, it sounds like it also might bring some dynamic problems. We have to really game theory that and see. I don't think longer is going to be a problem. I think shorter is where you have to really be close and some good debates there.
At least for the Speak network, we do have dynamic staking. It's more like if everybody here votes to have it shorter, it goes shorter. And all of the things that we're talking about, like safety, security, everything else is based on those staking distance or the staking length. So it'll be part of Honeycomb if you want to use those kinds of systems. And if it works out and this is a feature that everybody wants, maybe it'll go higher onto level 1. We're all just burning.
Just on fire.
For Hive.
That's a proof
Some
of
more
burn.
proof of burn. Some more questions. We move there? No, we stay here. We burn a few more minutes and then we have lunch. Then we burn from inside. Yeah. Another question.
Hey, so I'm Brian. I'm kind of curious about for me, an elephant in the room is retention. I've been to a bunch of HiveFests. There's obviously less people. It's cool. I don't really have a problem with that. But I'm curious what things are happening towards retention, and something that I'll mention amongst just regular user. I'm just a regular user. I'm not political. I'm not technical. I don't really get into the things. But sometimes there's a feeling like you can't say something because you're worried that one of these kind of whale downvoting powers will blast you. And I'm just kind of curious if you see that some of this thing is maybe what's pushing some people away. I know we've lost a lot of great people around some of these battles of downvotes and just retention. My question is around retention in general and any ideas of how to get people to stick around more and simultaneously like a way to maybe have less of this like intense thing of that somebody can just come and destroy you. I don't know if there's even a solution to that, but I'm interested in it.
Yeah. So I think the answer is layer 2 communities. I think trying to onboard a new user to just Hive, curators can only curate so much. You're going to have politics. So I think if you go into a community about cars and you talk about cars, you're less likely to be downvoted by a car whale, so to speak. And it sort of gets people into their own vibe and their own community. And whether these tokens have value or not, it's all about reputation and status inside that community. You ever see like a group of collectors or any kind of niche topic, you share and people respect you and people will put in painstaking hours just to get that. You see it in Reddit subreddits, for example. So I think getting the technology to make plug and play tokenized communities is essential. Once we get people on the Hive, you don't just say, oh, there you go, get your Hive upvote. You say, oh, what are you interested in? Oh, and then they'll naturally go to a Leo Finance, and they'll naturally go to a skate.hive community where they're going to have curators who are on guard for that type of content. So I think just looking at Hive, I look at Hive as a distribution mechanism. It's very cold-hearted to try to come into Hive and earn some Hive upvotes only. But, you know, you go to Leo and you share some nice financial, I wouldn't call it advice, but, you know, you're talking crypto and people like it, you're probably going to earn some Leo, at least a lot easier than you would Hive. And I know a lot of Leo users who actually earn a lot more Hive. Some of them might not even know what Hive is, and that's the ultimate goal, to be able to use an app, earn on it, whatever you're earning, be a part of a community without even really realizing the underlying technology.
So, I mean, I think there's a couple of prongs to this, and some of them are kind of missteps, and some of them are kind of natural. And it's a thing that I kind of think about a lot, because as I'm kind of moving around in different spaces and talking to different types of people, it turns out if you build a human blockchain for humans, they are going to human all over it. And that is a new experience for a lot of people in this space. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. Retention is always going to be an issue. And part of that comes from the fact that, you know, the birth of our chain and our platform and our story and even our legacy chain was initially presented to people as, you know, very much intrinsically tied to cryptocurrency. And market sentiment, and I know we hate saying things like that, but market sentiment and the overall attitude of everyone to cryptocurrency and blockchain has boom and bust cycles in the overall space. And you'll see it in our own users who will be like, well, why should I come back and do anything? It's not worth it. And so some of it is absolutely retention because of interpersonal issues. But some of it really is, you know, you came here not to be social, but you ended up being social towards an end. And that's not a bad thing, but unfortunately that precedent was set. And so now we've kind of entered a new, I want to say a new era, but we're getting there where, yeah, we are DApp first, community first onboarding. And that's very different for us than where we kind of started. So for us, especially the ones who are here at HiveFest or who are watching on the live stream, we're so immersed in this community. We're so familiar with each other that when somebody does go missing or when a community does look not as busy, for us, we notice it. We're getting to know each other. We've known each other for many years. But retention will always be a problem. And so it's one of those reasons that when we are helping dApps on board specifically, getting them to the right people, getting them to the match of what they're doing is so important, because this isn't just a Hive problem. It is, and that's the one that matters to us. But you build anything and retention is your number one concern. Any project, any business, any, influencer, you have your moment in the sun and then your community kind of peters out. How do you prevent that? And it's basically, a product match with the people that you're getting connected to. And so I'm not saying that a lot of the people that come to Hive aren't a good fit for Hive, but they often get onboarded in a way that doesn't right away connect them to what they want. And we've seen this shift where we're saying, okay, dApps have to onboard, dApps have to market. And it's true. And so for us, especially, a lot of the core team, core groups, our job is to help build better tools and to help dApps succeed at that. That's got to be the next phase of things. As to sort of the downvoting aspect, yeah, there's no doubt. Nobody likes to get downvoted. That sucks. Gross. It's not even about money. Just you don't like me? Well, I don't like you. That, again, human's gonna human, right? So, we've seen this, though. We've seen look, YouTube took dislikes off, and they're still experiencing just plummeting user base. So, unfortunately for us, downvotes in a lot of ways, again, you have established relationships over years, people who are incredibly passionate, and then you pair downvotes with it, and what it feels like to us is just people lobbing Molotov cocktails at each other. But then, the flip side is you have people who have been downvoted for years who are like, haha, still here, still going to comment on your stuff, still posting. So I think it comes back to how do you build tools for granularity? You give those people that same ability to keep going because they're obviously driven. And you give the people who right now maybe use downvotes in a specific way, you give them better tools to just trim out the experiences they don't want to interact with. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest thing is how do interfaces, dApps, projects, tools, how much more granularity can we give to a person to just say, I don't want to deal with you, I never want to see you again. How do we make that work really well so that you don't necessarily have to downvote most of the time to hide someone from your feed or whatever. And I think that's going to be a big part of diffusing some of the passionate fights that we see on chain, hopefully.
Matt has a question or answer or something in between.
Thank you, Starkers again. You guys are really working on the cutting edge of this chain and this technology, and I think this is an opportunity to tell the people, the world, and everyone watching on live stream, if it's possible, Detlev, if every one of them could just give an answer to this. Keep it relatively short. But I'd be really interested to know from each one of you guys, because there's no defined definition of this and it can go anywhere based on the community. But in the next 2 or 3 years, what things do you think we're going to be doing on a daily basis on Hive? As you guys are building this stuff, what interactions are we going to be making transactions on Ethereum from Gmail accounts through Hive? What do you think we're going to be doing? And again, not to make you promise anything, because I appreciate this is software and it can go anywhere and it can take a long time. But just give us a little clue as to where you're thinking this is going and what it's going to look like in the next few years.
It was more or less exactly what I planned now without talking to you. So coming to the point, if you have a wish for Hive, what would be the biggest wish we could look for, plan, even if you don't go that way, but maybe to tell the audience what you have in mind would be damn cool. Who wants to start?
Yeah. I think we have a good base technology and all the bricks we need to develop things. What we now need to focus on is developing useful stuff for layman pupil, and they don't know they use Hive, but they will need Hive to operate or to interact with our blockchain. So everything will grow, but they should not know about it. And
So with one word,
we slowly need to shift from technology to use cases.
thanks.
Yeah, the technology really needs to power the UIs. So we need good technology that equals good UX and that does everything that we need, while also being still like decentralized and secure. So like having seamless bridges with different ecosystems where you could easily on and off ramp users into Hive auction accounts, so you could easily create accounts without spending RCs and like flexible smart contracts and scaling, so that we can actually scale out to the hundreds of thousands and millions of users active per day.
So I kind of see Hive as a really big.
Put your mic a little bit closer.
I guess I have a different
Oh,
microphone.
love
So I see Hive as a really base security software. Like now you go to a website and you don't see the little lock on the top, and you're like, I'm not gonna touch this. But really, that is the level of security you're giving yourself when you're on a blockchain. And I'm really hoping that more and more of our interactions go into this space. And back to like the retention question, I think if you walk into a bar and there's nobody in the bar, you kind of leave. And it's kind of what it feels like when you walk into Hive the first time. You're like, wow, I don't care about crypto at all, and I saw the post that I want, so I'm going to leave. So I think a lot of people are working on things like union indexers to get more personalized feeds coming to you, so you actually feel like you're in a place you belong instead of, just an echo chamber for something you don't care about.
So I guess it's probably no secret what I've mostly been focused on. I think there's a lot of problems in the world where we have centralized organizations that, for one reason or another, aren't always the best. And so we need solutions, decentralized solutions. So my goal has always been just to make Hive a base layer, you'll hear the term a couple of times, and make it easy. Make it really easy for someone who wants to solve a problem, decentralize a problem, make it super simple. And unlike Archange, I don't think we're quite there yet technologically. I think there's still a lot of work we can do to make it much simpler for the devs. So I'm not saying devs shouldn't start now. They should. But that's the way we find problems along the way. But we certainly can do a lot of things to really ease the work that devs have to do. I mean, we talked about things like second layer accounts, light accounts, whatever. I think we can have things like a half app that would sit there and you could register keys. Then all the different apps can go look at that data on the blockchain and say, oh, this key is owned for this account, and I can use it in my app too. He can sign things with that key.
Yeah. No, I've been looking at this, just linking those two identities and linking your Ethereum address with your Hive.
Exactly.
It's all proven cryptographically.
So we can have very simple APIs for somebody to do all this, and they don't have to go write out their own code. We have a centralized database. It's called Hive, decentralized database. And so that's really where I think my time is being spent, is looking how to make these tools to just ease the development of these other apps.
So you guys touched on mine. If you've seen any of the sort of recent talks I've been asked to do and stuff like that, identity. Hive to me is identity, and that is valuable. As valuable as financial information about yourself is who you are, who you get to present yourself to be, who you interact with. And so for me, the future going forward, and what I'm personally most focused on is the reality that identity is not a piece of plastic that the government gives you. And that doesn't need to be a crazy conspiracy theorist kind of thing. It really should just be that you value who you are, and that you get to make choices on it, and that you get to interact with other identities that, are part of your network and bring you joy, and that you can create whatever it is that you're going to create with, whether that's just a relationship or whether that's something financial or, a business and beyond. So for me, when I look at Hive, I don't answer to Gina anymore. I mean, the only people who call me that are my parents. There's no one else in the world. I am Krim, and I am the sum of the actions that I've taken on and off this blockchain. And everything that you need to know about me publicly, you can find behind this identity that's built here. And I want other people to be able to do that. and take that out into the world and make that part of what they're doing and have ownership over it and pride in it. Or for those of you who are very private people, to be able to be private and still part of a global community or a local community. So I know that's kind of a different answer, but all of the tech that everyone around me is building is building towards that for me, for sure.
I could talk about this all day. If I had to think about something, it would be really this technology is a culmination of value for value, tokenized communities, the ability to reach into the depths where no one else can, and somebody who has value to provide, because all humans can provide value, can now be seen, recognized, and connected with like-minded value makers and create something like you see in Ghana and Venezuela and Cuba and the Philippines. And you're seeing it over and over and over again. So I just like to see the roots keep growing. You have circular economy possibilities with the HBD. And now if you get clever with these tokenized communities, what we perceive as value is valuable. If enough people perceive this community token as valuable, it will be valuable. So I think that striking into the hearts where it needs the most and giving people all the abundance. If you provide value, you can get all the abundance and value back. I really strongly believe in that. And I think that Hive is that ladder for anyone that needs to get out of a hole. There is potential now where there wasn't.